How's it going, everyone? My name is DuckDad and I am the coach of the Summit County Psyducks. Today, I'm going to be talking about my Week 6 match against the Calgary Corviknights. Let's talk about the team. First up, we have Garchomp. With the Corviknights' lack of Dragon Resist and multiple ground weaknesses, I thought this would be a good Pokemon to start off with. For the moveset, I decided to lean into that by giving it some good single-target stab moves, Stomping Tantrum and Dragon Claw. I then went with Reliable Rock Slide just so I had a good move to hit flying types with. It also doesn't hurt to have a good spread move. To round it off, I included Protect and gave it a Life Orb to deal out more damage, Terrafire to avoid burns and resist ice and fairy moves. For support, I included Whimsicott. This is a reliable Tailwind setter with its ability Prankster, raising the priority of its status moves. I gave it Protect, Taunt, Tailwind, and Moonblast. The status moves are pretty obvious choices for Whimsicott. For attacking stab moves, Moonblast was really my best option here since the Corviknights are not lacking when it comes to grass resists. Finally, I decided to go with a Water Terra to resist sun-boosted moves from Torkoal, Ogerpon, and Moltres. Also, I added a Covert Cloak because I forgot to change the item. Whoops! To enable Garchomp to deal out even more damage, I brought Chien-Pao with its Sword of Ruin ability. What's nice about Chien-Pao in this matchup is that I can afford to run it with an Adamant nature since it can easily outspeed Ogerpon Hearthflame. For its moves, I went with Ice Spinner, Crunch, Sucker Punch, and Protect. Ice looked really good into the Corviknights team with their whole team being weak to it overall. Crunch was just supposed to be a Dark-type move that dished out damage, but looking back on this, I wish I had Sacred Sword instead. Sucker Punch was a priority move that I could use to chunk Pokemon if Trick Room were to get set up by Articuno or Klefki. Finally, Terra Ghost were fighting-type moves from Hisuian Lilligant, Slitherwing, or Body Press Duraludon. For the item, the classic Focus Sash. Up next, Entei. With 4 Pokemon being weak to fire and the chance to take advantage of the sun, I thought this pick for the match was a no-brainer. Sacred Fire is a strong fire-type move with a 50% chance to burn and looks really good on Entei. For coverage, I went with Stomping Tantrum and Stone Edge since Ground and Rock look good into my opponent's team. And then, Extreme Speed as a priority option. I made Entei Terra Normal just to boost the damage of E-Speed. For the item, I want to do a lot of damage, so Choice Band is a fair item choice. So what's a good way to counter Sun? Well, it's probably Rain, right? Unfortunately, Whimsicott doesn't get access to Rain Dance, but I do have a bulky water type with access to Rain Dance. Enter Blastoise. I want this guy to sit on the field and change the weather when the time is right. Along with Rain Dance, I had it run Protect, Fake Out, and Muddy Water. For Muddy Water, I was hoping to get potential accuracy drops on my opponent's Pokemon. Finally, we have Zapdos. Zapdos is just a really reliable Pokemon on my team that I feel comfortable bringing here. It's also a good option for dealing with Toxapex. For moves, I went with Thunderbolt, Hurricane, Roost, and Tailwind. For the Terra type, I went with Steel just in case I needed to avoid any Toxics from Toxapex. And that's the team. Let's take a look at the match. Okay folks, we are back here at the match. Let's see how it goes. Starting off, I decided to go with Garchomp because I looked at the Calgary Corviknights team and everything that they have brought here, Sandy Shocks, Duraludon, Toxapex, and Torkoal, are pretty weak to ground, so I thought this would be a good starting point, and Whimsicott just to make sure that we get Tailwind up right away. He leads with Torkoal and Slitherwing, and as you can see right here, gets the attack boost with Photosynthesis. So this is really interesting. Right now, what I'm worried about is probably the Slitherwing going for an attack like First Impression and just doing a ton of damage to one of my Pokemon. So I decided to play it a little safe for this and decided to just go for a double Protect. So you see the Protect coming out from Whimsicott and Garchomp, but I get absolutely punished for this. Slitherwing decides to go for a Bulk Up, and also we get Stealth Rock set up with Torkoal. This could not have gone worse for me. It was a really bad start, and I really have to make up for this in my next turn. So you see the Photosynthesis for defense coming out for the Brute Bonnet. I decided to go for a Tailwind just to make sure that I can outspeed in the future, which looking back on it, it might not have been an issue because I think everything on my team pretty consistently outspeeds his Pokemon, unless there's something like a Choice Scarf, Sandy Shocks that has like Electro Web or something like that. But looking at this right now, I think I should have just gone for damage with Moonblast into the Slitherwing. So I decided to go for Tailwind and Rock Slide with the Garchomp, and it does not do anything to either of those Pokemon. It was a very, very sad Rock Slide, and as you can see here, I do take Life Orb Chip, and the Leech Life comes out for Slitherwing. So at least in this match, it looks like the Calgary Corviknights are going for bulky mons. Everything is just so bulky right now. So up next, I decided to just go for Protect on the Garchomp to make sure that I can have it to keep it stay around a little bit longer. And Sucker Punch does not get the KO on the Whimsicott, which I was very happy about. And I get my Moonblast off, and it does a ton of damage into Slitherwing. Plus, it crits. That's awesome. Leech Life comes out, and my Garchomp is safe for another turn. So up next, my Whimsicott will get taken out by Sucker Punch, unfortunately, but I do go for the Dragon Claw, and it just barely misses the KO on the Slitherwing. Very sad. Now the Corviknights are free to just go for a Leech Life, do a ton of damage, and recover so much back. And they also show that they are protective pads, not taking damage from Rough Skin. Up next, Entei comes out. I think Entei is looking like it's a pretty good position right here because the sun's out, I have my Choice Band, I can start just firing off Sacred Fires right here. So I decided to go for Protect on Garchomp again, just trying to make sure that it can live another turn. I go for a Sacred Fire and just KO the Brute Bonnet. Bruce Bonnet, oh yeah. So up next, let's see. Leech Life comes out. It is resisted, but it still does quite a bit with the +1 attack boost, plus the boost from Photosynthesis, so that is doing a lot to my Entei. Up next comes the Sandy Shocks, which I actually EV'd this to make sure that we outspeed it. So if everything goes well and it's not like a Choice Scarf or something like that, I can pretty consistently go for a Stomping Tantrum into the Sandy Shocks, and with that Life Orb damage, I will be able to pick up the KO from it. So you see right here, we are able to get that Stomping Tantrum off, KO that, and unfortunately our Garchomp goes down to Life Orb Recoil. But I do get off a Sacred Fire, it does a ton of damage and KOs the Slitherwing. So right now at this point, I'm looking pretty okay. I feel pretty confident about the remaining monsters. They're all pretty bulky, but I feel like I have a lot of damage coming out from my side of the field. Maybe not right now with Blastoise, but Entei, it can definitely do a lot of damage. So Toxapex comes out and the Duraludon comes out. So at this point, I'm thinking I don't want the Toxapex to do something funny, so I'll just go for a Fake Out. Make sure that it's pretty consistent with that. And I'll probably just try to fire off a Sacred Fire into the Duraludon just so I can chunk it a little bit. So there goes the Fake Out, and the Sacred Fire connects, also gets the burn, which is really nice. And then Iron Defense comes out. Now this is pretty scary because the Calgary Corviknights have 2 Mons already that have set up on me, so I really have to be careful about this, make sure that it doesn't get too out of hand. So I decided to go for another Sacred Fire, and I don't know the roll off the top of my head in the moment of this match. I think it might have enough just to KO, or if anything, I could probably just rely on the burn damage to take it out, but let's see how it goes. So I just decided to Protect with my Blastoise, just to kind of avoid any sort of Toxics coming out from Toxapex or something like that. Go for the Sacred Fire, just barely misses the KO, 5%. And the bane of my existence right here, Rest. So all that work that I put into chunking this Duraludon is just gone. This is probably the worst case scenario for me because if you remember, I don't have Sacred Sword on my Gen Pao, so there's no really good way for me to chunk this. It's not looking good for me. And I get Toxic from Toxapex. So I tried to go for another one, but without the sun, it is not doing nearly enough damage. Duraludon will take another turn of sleep, and I'll go for Muddy Water. My Entei barely survives, but then it will go down to the toxic damage. Up next, Zapdos. I feel like, if anything, I could probably whittle down the Duraludon later in the game. But right now, I want to see if I can probably focus on, or if I want to see if I can focus on the Toxapex right now. Decide to go for a Thunderbolt, and it lives that. Muddy Water comes out as well, and there is the Toxic. That was another misplay on my part. I brought the Steel Terra type on Zapdos specifically to avoid Toxic, and I did not utilize it here. I felt like looking back on it, if I had Terra there, I feel like I would have been in a little bit of a better position. I wouldn't have the Toxic down. I could probably still use Roost. I would have to be careful of potential body presses from the Duraludon, but I feel like I would have been in a better position. So, Baneful Bunker comes out. I try to hit it again, but it is protected. Body Press actually misses, so thank you to Muddy Water for that accuracy drop. And then I get my Rain Dance off. I don't know if it's really going to do me a whole lot here, but I think, if anything, I can try to go for Hurricanes. I can do Rain Boosted Muddy Waters or something like that. So this is just me trying to make something out of a bad situation. So Corviknights switch out to Torkoal and reset the Sun. I go for Thunderbolt, does a pretty good amount of damage into the Torkoal. Body Press comes out, does a pretty good chunk into Blastoise, but I'm able to heal up with a Citrus Berry. I go for another Muddy Water, and I get another accuracy drop on the Torkoal this time. And Zapdos is still getting whittled down by toxic damage. This is not looking great, and I feel like I'm not in a spot where I can consistently switch it out due to the rocks. Thunderbolt will take out the Torkoal this time. Body Press does another 44%, does a lot of damage. I go for Muddy Water just there. Then Toxapex comes out. At this point, I'm really trying to bait out a Baneful Bunker. I'm trying to heal up some damage as well. But you'll see later that this does not work out for me. So I go for Roost here. Duraludon gets up another rest, so all that damage that I did onto the Duraludon is just nothing right now. And then Recover comes out from Toxapex. Oh, there's so much recovery, so much just bulky mons on this team. I feel like my damage is just not there today. It's not there during this match, and it's not looking great. So I decided to go for another Roost just to heal up some more damage, possibly bait out a Baneful Bunker, but we see that doesn't happen. I set up the Rain as well, and an accuracy drop on my Zapdos from my opponent's Muddy Water. So this is not looking great. Finally, the Baneful Bunker comes out, but right when I decide to go for Thunderbolt. So very unfortunate timing on my part. Muddy Water connects, and I don't get the accuracy drop, unfortunately. I do get some healing from Rain Dish, though, and unfortunately, Zapdos will go down. So now I'm left with my last two Pokemon against the Corviknights' last two Pokemon, and it is not looking great. I don't have Sacred Sword. I really have to rely on Ice Spitter and Crunch for my main damage, but with a +2 defense Duraludon, it's not looking good either way. Plus, I take about 25% from the rocks there as well, which is not great for the Focus Sash that I had on Jianpao. I decided to go for a Terra Ghost just to avoid any sort of body presses or anything like that, but the Corviknights kind of called that later on, and they decided to go for a Draco Meteor, but luckily they miss it. Muddy Water connects and does 31% to Jianpao. And then finally, at this point, I don't think there's any way for me to really win in this case. Maybe if I get really lucky with the accuracy drops, but it's just not looking good overall. And I see the writing on the wall at this point. So I'm just trying to do as much damage as I can, just kind of spread it around. But as you can see here, Toxic comes out again. So at this point, there's nothing that I can do. Any sort of move can take me out at this point. Draco Meteor connects, and that is the end of the game. So unfortunate showing for the Psyducks this time around. The Corviknights just had too much defense, and really when it came to my team was really focused on offense, but I just couldn't break through or anything like that. So props to the Corviknights. After the first few turns, I thought we were looking good, but Duraludon really stopped me dead in my tracks. That was a great bring to the match, especially since I didn't have Sacred Sword on Chien-Pao to deal with that. So GG to the Calgary Corviknights, and thank you for watching, everybody. I will see you in the next video.